Welcome back. I'm here in Times Square at our studios here having an interesting conversation with very respected members of the Indian American community. And of course, before we carry on, I want you to tell us, because this is all a build up to the Madison Square event, Jagdish. Yes. Tell us the flow of this Madison Square event. How is it? I mean, there'll be politicians there. There's a cultural event. Is Modi the only speaker? Because it would be terrible. I think there'd be two bad jobs there tomorrow. Okay. One, the person introducing Modi. Right. Because people would want him to speak for a very short time. But if there's anyone speaking after Modi...
Nobody is speaking after Modi.
Okay. That's a smart move. You wouldn't want to be the guy who speaks after Modi, right?
And I will keep the introduction part. Let it be secret so that, there is some fun left there.
Okay.
And as far as the flow and the power of Indian you see, tomorrow you will see number of congressmen and senators and governor to come and receive him.
Okay.
So I'm sure Times Now will be there, and they'll be interviewing most of these congresmen and senators.
I look forward to that, Jagdish.
And they have shown the interest to meet you.
Well, really?
And to meet Narendra Bhai. So we are hosting a lunch brunch for them. The congressman around 11:30 for them, and Narendra Bhai is going to meet them before that, our Prime Minister.
Yes, that's going to be fantastic, Jagdish. So you're going to have a lot of leading American politicians who are there at that event.
Yes, who's who of them will be there. Well, this being the election year, maybe a lot of people will not come from other states, but you'll see a lot of congressmen and senators and governors.
Yeah, so now I'm coming back to the other point, and let's go back to you, Vibhuti, on that. What about your political clout? What political clout does the Indian American community carry? Give me a candid American type answer, please.
It's very simple. It's very simple. Numbers matter, money matters. So in terms of numbers, we don't have that kind of a big voting block of millions of people.
You wish you did?
Sorry?
You wish you did?
I wish we did.
So why is that?
The reason is we are only 3 million people in this country.
A small number?
It is a small number. So at the presidential election level, it doesn't matter, but the money matters there because the money is required for fighting the big election. Where the Indian community can make a difference is by participating in local level of elections in a Nassau County where I live, or a Suffolk County, or Bergen County in New Jersey. If we begin to step in over there, then you are seeing a grassroots recognition of what we Indians can make a difference. But those votes are decided by 1,000 numbers here and there. So that's one thing which is very important for Indians to realize, in my opinion. Most of us get enamored by the fact that we are giving millions of dollars in presidential campaign. I think it doesn't matter so much as it creates a goodwill.
Dr. Vishal,
Well, I actually think slightly differently, which is that, first of all, I think we must recognize that for the size of the community, we actually have a fair amount of clout. Because if you look at senior staffers, where Indian Americans are in the government, much larger numbers than any other Asian Americans. So number one. Number two, I think that there is in fact more and more Indian Americans who are coming into the political arena because of partnerships. So it's not just that they're going after other Indians. And I think that it's very important to recognize that it's about creating partnerships with other communities. Because in this country, if you just go after your own, it's never going to work.
That's exactly the point which I was referring to.
It's a solid point.
And Indians are very good at doing that. Number three, we're a young community. I mean, after all, yes, the Sikhs came very early, but by and large, the community really started in large numbers after the 65 immigration reform. So we're very young. And I think that within the next 10 years, you'll see a huge change.
You think so?
Yeah, absolutely. There is another dimension.
Because the more political clout that you have, the more that you can lobby. And then these controversial sort of immigration reform bills which are being talked about. And I had Senator Robert Menendez in this panel I was talking to. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
and I asked Senator Robert Menendez, I said, Senator, are you willing to discuss this controversial bill all over again? Because there are a few provisions which don't go down very well for Indians, especially on the H-1 visa issue. And you know what he said, Sanjay? He said, yes, it's up on the table for discussions. I thought that was a very flexible kind of approach. I don't know whether he was telling me because I'm from an Indian channel or whether he meant it.
Well, because he is himself a big proponent of immigration. Remember, he's a Cuban American. So he has a big stake in there. But coming to Vishakha's point, We talk about we don't have political clout. There are 2 governors of Indian American origin. We have a member of Congress. We have so many state legislators. We've got state staffers. And go down to Congress and you'll see so many key influential staffers. Look at the USAID head. Look at the CIO, the CTOs of Indian American origin. First generation, as she said, they had $6. They were building their home. Now the second generation is coming in, and you just watch, because we continually support financially these young people who need their support. But as far as lobbying is concerned, how do you think the US-India nuclear deal happened?
Right.
The Indian American community really galvanized and pushed, not because they had an interest.
Are you disappointed of where it went?
Yes, we are disappointed because we didn't know thorium, uranium. We were told this was a good thing for US-India relations. Now, obviously, we didn't realize...
You're not nuclear physicists.
We are not nuclear physicists. We are just passionate about US-India relations.
You know, I am a bit of a cynic sometimes. And don't take this as a cynical question, but, you know, I was reading the Wall Street Journal editorial that day. And I went across to the Wall Street Journal and I spoke to one of their senior editorial columnists. And I asked him, what did you think about it? And he said, well, we welcome it. I think it's great. But he also made a point that the warm-up has been so good. The expectations are so high. The honeymoon is so terrific that there is always a fear that expectations from Mr. Modi, and I'm talking from the more business point of view right now, the expectations can be risen so high that there is a risk of, things backfiring. Does that worry you? You're a BJP member, and I'd like to ask both of you. Do you worry about it?
So, Arnab, first I want to just add up what the gentleman has said. Besides political clout, there is another dimension. Just like if you go to any corporate here, all the higher ups now are Indians, most of them. You go to any big universities. Now it is the reverse. I would not say discrimination, because if they don't do that, then all the people in Harvard and all, I believe, will be Indians.
Yeah.
So that also generates a cloud.
Yeah.
Because when they go and they work in a corporation, that creates a pressure for the lawmaking people to hear their voice. So that is also one dimension of the political cloud.
No, I accept your point.
I'll tell you.
Now come to my question.
We are not worried about it at all. The more, if we have enough, the target is, higher. वो बोलते हैं सूरज तक अपना निशाना रखो. अगर सूरज नहीं चांद तक तो पहुंचेगा.
No, but let me push you on that. You had an economist,
right?
You had an economist who kickstarted India's economic reforms,
right?
Seen to be personally honest, right? He had the best minds were doing the key portfolios, and yet in terms of delivery and performance, there was a feeling, and you yourself spoke about it, that India slowed down and was held back by forces within. That's why I'm asking you, is there a fear of expectations going too high?
Manmohan Singh was a good economist, but he was not a good leader. We have to accept it. And
how do you know that Modi is a good politician, a good leader who will be a good economist?
I have watched him for last 22 years when he was not even a chief minister of Gujarat. And what he has done in Gujarat in last 11, 12 years, results are there to be seen.
What if I say, are you enchanted by Mr. Modi? Are you too taken away?
Come
on, Jagdish.
You can say that. You can say that, but I'm a realistic also. I have seen him. He really cares for India. He is a dynamic leader. He's a visionary. He knows where to take India 10 years from now. And I'm sure he will take it.
Okay, Sanjay.
Arnab, let's talk, having discussions with CEOs of companies. One thing I can tell you is always set expectations lower and try to exceed them. What they say right now is, we've seen this movie before, and they follow a Reagan outage. Basically, trust but verify. So that's what they're trying to tell you is, let us see real action, because the two things they want, transparent policies and consistent policies.
The important part.
I understand why they're saying that, because they saw the highs of 2008.
Yes.
They saw the Indo-US nuclear deal. Then they saw what happened. So the relationship plateaued. They saw Vodafone. They're not seeing the effective tax reform. So I think if I can understand how American businessmen do business, they will talk Turkey. And when that meeting happens with Mr. Modi, it'll be a business-like conversation. And perhaps he'll have to get the specifics of that conversation.
One of the industrialists had mentioned that FDI entering in India is like entering in the Battle of Chakravyuh. You know how to enter, but you don't know how to get out. So money has to be welcomed, And Mr. Modi will have the biggest task that he elaborated in Japan, that we will welcome you with red carpet. Now, the question is whether the industry, the investors will have the opportunity to exit also at the same time, or are we going to have policies that will affect exit of the industry?
Vibhuti.
So this is very important.
When he was speaking at the UNGA, we had all the strategic experts around the table, and you know what they said? They said that what Modi's done right is that he's kept the message very simple. When you keep the message simple, your delivery is simple. Now, he does that in terms of diplomacy. Can he do that in terms of economy? Can he keep it simple?
He could keep it simple. And I believe in Einstein's famous statement, any intelligent fool, he said, any intelligent fool can complicate a simple problem. It takes a courageous one to move in the other direction. I notice in Mr. Modi's pronouncements that he's taking those small steps. That is important, and those are path-breaking announcements.
Right.
So when he said, I'm going to clean Varanasi, it is a very deep message, and for me, the message is that Goddess of Lakshmi comes in a clean environment. Our Pandits and priests, everybody knows. How can we keep our homes clean and streets dirty? So the question is that it leads to cleanliness of environment.
No, I think
it is cleanliness of mind, and that is the kind of thing which he's talking about.
Vibhuti, I think he's connecting with a lot of people. So tell me, Dr. Vishakha, what do you think he's going to say? What is that speech going to be about?
First of all, let me just
What is that speech going to be? I'll give you the most difficult job of this conversation.
There you go.
The most difficult job of the conversation is to do what no journalist can do in India, is read Mr. Modi's mind.
There you go. And you were asking me, right? But before
so we'll give her the tough job.
No, but he knows him too well. So those of us who don't know him that well, although I have met him. But I think that first of all, let us be very clear that when we talk about honeymoon, American business is not talking about honeymoon. They're saying, we're going to talk Turkey, let's wait and see. The money is not just immediately flooding in because they're going to see what happens. So I think we have to remember that when we're talking about a honeymoon phase, who are we talking about? It is which direction. Now, speaking about what he's going to say tomorrow, my own sense is that I think he's created a sense of pride in wanting to be what it feels like to be an Indian. I think that pride comes from also his referencing back into our own traditions. And I think that pride is something we felt like we didn't have sitting here for the last so many years.
That's why I said, as somebody told me, and I've been repeating this since, he said it's now cool to be Indian.
Yes.
That is very good statement.
It's now,
you said it right.
I said, what is Madison Square all about? And they said, my friend Nikhil, he works at Time Magazine, he said, I think it's cool to be Indian. I said, Nikhil, I think
I'll give you a simple example. My daughter is a student in NYU, Eastern. She is never connected with Indian politics at all. Suddenly she tells me last week, Dad, I want to volunteer for Madison Square Garden event. I was like, what's happening? He said, everybody in NYU is talking about Modi, 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 and you know him so well. I would like to meet him. And I would like to volunteer. And all those kids who are working behind the scene, they are all young kids.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's a very interesting event we are looking forward to. I thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
If I may add one thing, at your expense of your time, is that you asked a difficult question of Vishakha about
she didn't bite the bait. You want to bite the bait?
I will, because I wrote an article.
We should get the prize. We should make him put on a bet of what happens if he gets it wrong.
I have written a speech actually in the what imagining and imaging what Mr. Modi ought to say, because remembering in school days and college days we used to be asked to write a essay on what would you do if you were the Prime Minister. I wrote a speech.
I want to say
and in that speech I got feedback. One of them says, are you the official speech writer for the Prime Minister?
Difficult job.
I want to add one thing. There is a difference between Mr. Modi and the previous Prime Minister. Here there is a leader who is the head of the government as well as the head of the party.
That's right.
So he can decide.
Yeah.
Earlier, you know the story.
No, I think he does come with a certain amount of authority, and I find it very interesting the way his visit here seems to have rejuvenated the Indian American community. Sanjay will look at what impact that has on business, but simply as a sociological phenomenon, I think Madison Square Garden event is going to be
rocking.
Yeah, rocking.
It was Enrique Iglesias last night. It will be Namo. tomorrow.
After Julio Iglesias, it's Namo.
Rockstar Namo.
When the Madison Square Garden was taken, even I was skeptical whether we can get 20,000
Right.
people. But there were 40,000 people.
Right.
So the response was overwhelming.
Right.
Means earlier even none of us had expected this kind of response.
Well, you know, I've really enjoyed this chat, and I look forward to being with all of you at the Madison Square Gardens and to bringing you the live coverage. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, Sunday evening, your date is with Times Now, where we will be bringing the live event of Madison Square Gardens to you. Till then, goodbye.